Thanks for joining us in this Gold Medal Minute takeover of the SwimSwam Podcast. I'm Mel Stewart. I'm joined by Coleman Hodges, SwimSwam Head of Production, and the guy on the scene for every major competition. And we're joined by the great three-time Olympic gold medalist, Rowdy Gaines.
Hi, guys.
Looking for the latest swim technology from the fastest brands? Find the right suit for you with Swim Outlet's 2020 Tech Suit Review. Available now at swimoutlet.com/blog. Rowdy, I'm going to break all journalistic rules and just say this. When I think of you, I love you. When I see you, it's just like my heart swells, and it makes me feel okay to be in swimming.
That it makes what?
I feel when in swimming, I feel like I feel like I'm at home on the pool deck when I see you.
Well, I feel the same way about you, buddy. I mean, you and your organization has transformed the sport, something where, we kind of look forward to the sport, not just every 4 years, but on a daily basis. So, I love swimming. I love it. I love it with every fiber of who I am. It's part of the fabric of who I am. It transformed my life. It changed my life when I started. So I feel like I still owe swimming a lot more than it owes me. That's for sure. All
right, you are here with us, and we're really here to talk about what's going on right now and see through the Rowdy wisdom lens what's happening going into the future. But before we get there, let's go into the past. When I've throughout this moment, thinking about what's happening now, and frankly, feeling probably what a lot of swimmers are feeling, a lot of fans are feeling, some depression. What informs me and what really makes me feel stronger is knowing your story and living through your story, because I was a kid and you were my hero, and that really is the 1980 boycott and what that experience was like. So I was hoping that you must have a lot of emotions and feelings going on right now. Thinking back through that time, you must feel triggered in some ways.
It does, Mel. I mean, it's a little apples and oranges only because, now today it's a matter of life and death. For us, it was more of a matter of an athletic career that was in the balance. So it's a little bit different, but I can certainly empathize with the athletes because it was something that was taken away from you. Regardless of the reason, it was still taken away. And in this day, it's more of a postponement than a cancellation, but I feel their pain. I really do. And, you start to go through these emotions. I can imagine the emotions because, as you said, it did trigger the denial. I think when it first started, everybody was in complete denial. They're not going to cancel the Olympics, right? Or they're not going to postpone the Olympics. And then, the reality sets in and it becomes a huge anger. You get angry, you can't help it. And then that leads to, depression, sadness. And then you turn the corner and it turns into more of an acceptance. And then the very best, it might not have happened yet. For some it might, but it moves to motivation. And that's what the steps I kind of went through, and I can imagine that they're probably going through right now. At least talking to several clubs. I talked to Indiana's pro team the other day. I've spoken about 25 clubs here the last 6 weeks or so. So I get the feeling from the questions I get asked and from the emotions I feel from the athletes. That's sort of what they're going through.
During that period of time, you still were you had a bit of a bridge. You had something to bring you back, and that was your NC2A experience. Right. And when I think about your NC2A experience, what sticks out in my head, it's like the thumbnail in your brain, the memory of Rowdy Gaines and why he was great, was the 133 200-yard freestyle. And to put it into context, the 133 200-yard freestyle, was that 1981?
81, yeah.
1981. No dolphin kicks off the wall.
Oh, no.
133, no dolphin kicks off the wall. That's serious talent. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm going to say that with dolphin kicks off the wall, Rowdy Gaines would have been 128. What? Oh, no. So, Coleman, you pull me back if you want to.
Dude, first of all, I was terrible with the dolphin kick. Now, I guess in this day and age, if I would work on a dolphin kick, it might have been different. But I was terrible with dolphin kick. You know, you remember Jesse Vasallo and those guys. You guys have reported on the dolphin kick and who created, who invented, Rick Carey. I mean, I was terrible at those things. I mean, we would practice those things just for fun, you know, and I was terrible. So no, I would have never been 128. I still would be without a dolphin kick and be 133. But it was a good time back then in 1981. 133 was pretty good.
So this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking if you had been indoctrinated into the streamlined dolphin kick the way kids are today, I'm still sticking by my prediction, but I want Coleman to add some context because he'll keep it in reality.
I think we saw Townley go 130 when, you know, really without dolphin kicks, his turns were not at an elite level like his stroke was. And so then we kind of saw that slowly go. And I think Blake Peroni had a little better turns, but then Townley again went 129.5 again. And, you know, maybe a few dolphin kicks, but I think Dean Ferris has elite turns, and he really, you know, set the bar with that 129.1. But I don't know, Rowdy. I think you get a couple good dolphins in each turn. We see you pushing on the door of breaking 130 easy.
Well, thanks, Coleman. You've seen me in the water lately, so it's not a pretty sight. But you know, it was a completely different era. You know, we swam in Speedos, and the lane lines aren't what they are today. Pools were not as fast back then. Although the pool I swam in was Austin, so it was plenty fast. But it's, you know, it's different eras. I mean, how do you compare Joe Montana to Tom Brady? How do you compare Michael Jordan to LeBron James? It's really hard, you know, in the different eras. Like, you know, this whole documentary on Michael and everything, and about that way, you know, what would happen with Michael and LeBron James, who would win? And it's just, it's fun, you know, talk about over a drink, but it's really unfair because it's just completely different eras. So you just never know, but it is kind of fun to talk about.
So, but you don't live and breathe in the SwimSwam oxygen on a daily basis. And this is exactly the conversation that we want to have. And I undersold this. No compression suit.
Yeah.
Yes, Speedo, no dolphin kicks.
You swam in the Speedos.
Pardon me?
You did too.
I did the same thing, but I went a 134 200-yard free, and I was pumped to go 134 200-yard free, but I did it a full decade after you. And I did some dolphin kicks off the wall. I did a few. Yeah,
but you were going 134, 200 freestyle, and you were also going 140, 200 fly. So, you know.
141. But I appreciate it.
I mean, you know, I couldn't go 140, 100-yard butterfly back then. So it's I was only good in freestyle. You were at least a little bit more versatile than that.
All right, so it's I'm a little bit off the reservation. So here's the thing: you had the warm embrace of college swimming, which everybody loves, and really it's an underpinning for our sport. And it's but then it was over, and then people don't realize this at the time. Rowdy and I know culturally at that time when collegiate swimming was over, the powers that be told you to move on, and you were not supposed to remain in the sport, and you did. And you were going to be 25 years old in 1984. So take me back to that moment where college swimming's over and you're having to make a decision on what's my lifestyle going to be like between now and 84. What was going through your mind?
Well, to be succinct, because it is a long story, but after 1981, you're right, I retired. And Coleman and I were just talking about it. Because back then there was no money. It was, in fact, you weren't allowed to take money in the early 80s and earlier because it was sort of like the NCAA rule. It was strictly an amateur sport. So everybody retired. You know, after you finished your college senior year, you retired. I mean, if you look back at all the greatest swimmers pre-1985, that were, you know, Mark Spitz and John Naber and Don Scholander, they all won when they were 20, 21 years old. So it was definitely a time for me to retire. But after about 6 months, Mel, you know, my father came to me and said, you know, are you going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror for the rest of your life and say, what if? Do you want to have that kind of regret? If you do, no problem. Are you going to be able to listen to the national anthem or hear the Olympic theme or see the Olympic rings? Is that going to eat at you for the rest of your life? when you know you've got 70, 80 years left, and whether or not to sacrifice 3 years of your life to do that. And that's what it came down to. I just kind of felt like I didn't want to have any regrets in my life, and came back after about 6 months out of the water. And the next 3 years were a lot of peaks and valleys, a lot of ups and downs, but ended up making it 84. Barely, barely, but I made it.
But also going through this experience with all your peers, because you had a lot of peers who really should have peaked in 1980. A lot of great swimmers. And we know that some didn't make it through the chute from 80 to 84.
Yep.
And I think that had to weigh on you, because you were all in this experience together. I really, it's Tracy Calkins probably would have had a much better 1980 than an 84.
Absolutely.
But she made it through, and she still became iconic. This iconic. She had her moment in the sun. So when you shared this story and you've been very intimate with people, you said, "Hey, this wasn't easy. It wasn't the same thing. I worked." And tell us about your night clerk days here in Austin, Texas, while you were training for 1984.
Yeah, because after I graduated from Auburn in 81, I stayed for another 6 months, and then I moved to Austin because my coach, Richard Quick, had taken the job down there with the women's team. Eddie Reese, who coached me my freshman year at Auburn, was also there. So I knew I kind of had the best of both worlds moving to Austin. But again, I was broke. I literally lived off of macaroni and cheese and lots of cereal for about 2.5 years. And had to go to work. I worked at, you know it well, the Hyatt in Austin, Texas. And I worked as a night clerk, my 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift. Go home, get a couple hours sleep, morning workout. I was telling Coleman, you sleep all day, and I slept all day. And go to afternoon workout and start it all over again at night. So that was sort of my routine for about 2 years. And like I said, there were a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, but the journey was, I think, for me, a big part of my success. It wasn't so much the end result, it was the journey. And I want to quickly go back to what you were talking about, the other guy, men and women that were on the team with me in 80. So there were 45 of us that made the team in 80, Mel. 24 of those 45, that was their only Olympic team. Meaning they didn't make it in 76 and didn't make it in 84. So over half of that team, that was their lone Olympic team. So for me, you said it perfectly. I had my day in the sun. Tracy had her day in the sun. Craig Beardsley deserves to be in the International Swimming Hall of Fame. There's no question in my mind. And I think if you would see some of those other athletes and what happened to them in 80s, a lot of them would be there. Sue Walsh and Bill Barrett and Glenn Mills. And the list goes on and on and on, with just incredible athletes that would have cleaned up in 1980. And those are the real, you want to call heroes of swimming. They were the real heroes to me because they spent another 4 years in the water just like I did.
So Coleman, how old were you in 1984? Were you alive?
I was not born in 84.
Oh my gosh. I really hate you, Mel.
Do you have any, Coleman, do you have any memory of like media from 1984? Anything that stands out in your mind from the LA Olympics? Did you consume any of that when you became of your swimming understanding?
No, I might barely remember watching the 2004 Olympics, but really my first was 2008, and that's when I was 16. I wasn't really into swimming until probably my later teens, and so. But since then, I've certainly consumed a lot of media on it, and obviously, the iconic shot of Rowdy from '84. That's what about the '84 Olympics.
How fascinating! So yes, that one shot of you walking by and his arms stretched out, right? And he's. What are you doing? Are you giving your flowers away, Rowdy?
I saw my mom.
Oh, okay.
That was the first time I had seen her since I won. I was walking to the award stand, and she, back then it was my mom and my dad and my sister, and my dad had to because we got 2 tickets, but my dad had to scout tickets outside, and he was on one side of the stadium, my mom was on another, and my dad, my sister was on another. So, but somehow or another, my mother had kind of snuck down to the very front. And it was the first time I'd seen her. So that was when I kind of stretched out my arms.
So let me take this back and let's make this an intimate conversation. I can say a few things just through the 1984 lens. Coleman, if I understand this correctly, I understand my Rowdy Gaines lore. Rowdy really wasn't a swimmer until what, 16? Like full-time swimmer? What?
I was a junior in high school, 17. I just turned 17 when I went out for the team.
So I'll say, in my mind, I have very negative opinions about that, but that's actually very positive for a lot of people because I was suffering at 5 years old. But he came to swimming late, and the way a lot of, like you did, a lot of SwimSwam riders all came to swimming late, and they really enjoy swim. They have a passion for it. But in 1984, the LA Games we missed 80, and then the LA Games was this rebirth of the Olympic Games in a Hollywood version that was the coolest thing you could possibly imagine. It felt less journalistic and more like entertainment and a celebration. And I think there was also some pent-up demand and emotion for that celebration. And what I remember most was the greatest reaction time in the 100-meter freestyle in the history of the sport. 100-meter free, Rowdy's best time was a 49.36 world record, but he won with a 49.80, correct?
Correct.
What was your reaction time in the Olympic final on the start?
Well, back then we didn't have that, but it was good. We didn't have a reaction time. I mean, nobody even knew what that word meant. Those two words meant.
You did.
Yeah. So again, it's a long story to make it short, though. So I swam the third day, right, Mel? And the back then there were 3 starters that would rotate starting races. And one of the starters was this guy from Panama, and he was really quick. It was basically take your mark, go. And so Richard, my coach, saw that starter and said, we have to change your start. Now, this is a start that I've been working on for 2 years. It was track start. I was the only swimmer to do the track start in those Olympic Games. So I went down slow, just like everybody else. But he said, if we don't change it, and if this guy starts the race, you're going to get left on the blocks. And because of Richard, we changed my start the whole day before my race. We worked on the cadence of going down and went down fast. And again, the rest is history. Everybody else got left on the blocks, and I timed it perfectly for sure. It wasn't so much that I had a great start, Mel. It was just that everybody else was still coming down, so it made it look. I think if you've ever seen the Bud Greenspan documentary, it makes it look like I had this great start. And in fact, it was good. It was fast. I was ready, but it was more that everybody else was so slow because they were still coming down.
It was one of the most dramatic Olympic finals. So here's the 100 free is a blue ribbon event. That's the star. That's the star role. It's really, you're quarterback in the team. And so I remember watching it with my parents on the couch in Gastonia, North Carolina. And my dad is nearly 300 pounds, ball-headed, and loves swimming. And my dad, I was Melvin Jr., he was Melvin Sr. My dad came off the couch and, when you got off the blocks, and he's like, "It's over, he's won." It's one of those moments in Olympic sports that seals your history, and it's like you'll forever be burned in so many people's brains, just like mine.
It is humbling, Mel, and there's no doubt. It's as an Olympic gold medalist, it's humbling, and it's a humbling experience anyway. But to be a part of that club is pretty cool. When you think about the swimmers in that club, Johnny Weissmiller, and Buster Crabbe, and Duke Moku, and Don Scholander, Mark Spitz. I mean, the list goes on and on, obviously, and then the most recent with Nathan Adrian. So it's a pretty cool club to belong to. Sort of like those backstrokers, Ryan Murphy, and saying what a cool club it feels to belong to. That streak that America's had in the 100, 200 backstroke. We haven't had quite the streak in the 100 free, but it's still a pretty cool club to belong to, no doubt.
All right, thank you for that. And then we're going to get into what's happening right now, which is the reason why I wanted Coleman here, because he's so close to the sport in terms of reporting on deck. But just to start us off, where we're at right now and what's happening leading into 2021, I can tell you, it feels like a bleak moment. And this is exclusive. I've been learning this. I've been hearing from USOPC employees who are anonymous off the record, but I know that a big part of that staff, not a big part, but it's going to feel like a big part. They're going to be let off this week and into next week, and it'll probably hit the news. So they're contracting right now, and the economic impact is hitting us at the leadership level, and athletes are, I guess, we know what's going on in terms of where athletes are at and trying to train, but what are you feeling in this moment, and how and what are you hearing from elites who I'm sure are reaching out to you?
It's incredibly a sobering time. There's no doubt about it. We can't hide our head in the sand about it. And you try to stay positive, and you try to motivate yourself within. You keep feeling like, hey, we're going to come out of this. We're going to be better from it. But I think it's okay to feel vulnerable. I think it's okay to feel a sadness. I don't think you should hold it inside you. And I think talking to the Indiana Pro group the other day, I think it really helped. It helped me. And I feel like it really helped them to say, hey, listen, we're going to get through this. But that's the beautiful thing about swimming, right? About USA Swimming is this is a family. I know that sounds really corny. I know it sounds cliche-ish, but it is very true. We've always been able to get through these valleys one way or the other, whether it was the boycott or something else, and we tend to do it together. And when we come out of this, I think we're gonna stick together, and that's gonna help a lot. You don't have to have this whole weight of the world right on your shoulders. That we'll be able to rely on others for help and for love and support. And that's all you can do is just have hope. I mean, what else is there? You gotta cling on to that hope. And that's what I try to tell all the kids, whether it's the age groupers I've been speaking to or the pros. It's just to cling on to that hope, and that we'll be better from this. The cool thing, and I've heard about this, Mel, is every day you're out of the water, it takes about a half a day to develop the feel for the water again, right? So if you're out of the water for 2 weeks, it's going to take you about a week to get the feel for the water. So if I told these guys, okay, so you're out of the water 3 months. Let's say you don't get back until mid-June. Then it's going to take you about 6 weeks to get back into it, and then you're going to be fine. So it's not like, it's this lifetime. Now from an economic standpoint, that's a whole different ballgame. Believe me, I know about that. So
it's
I can feel their pain on the economic front, all the people, because I was furloughed myself. So it's not an easy time.
No, not an easy time. Let's bring it back to the you've been the voice of swimming with NBC since really began in 1992. Is that correct? 1992, right? Triple cast, 1992. Been doing this forever. So very, very intimate with sport. For swim nerds at SwimSwam, Coleman, we've been reporting on this, and you've been doing lots of interviews over and over and over. How is this next year, in your opinion, Coleman? Who's going to benefit from this extra year of training? What athletes are going to benefit from this?
Well, I mean, I think that's one interesting thing that, from my personal perspective, I think everyone who's being proactive in any way is going to benefit. Maybe the top end of your athletes who are in your upper 30s, this might have been their best window, and next year might be a little dicier for them in terms of making an Olympic team. But I think, everyone who's being proactive in or out of the water right now is going to be in a good spot, maybe not better, but they're certainly going to set themselves up to be okay heading into this next Olympic year. I was about to say Olympic cycle, but I guess we're still in the same one. And Rowdy, I think it'd be interesting to hear, we go to a lot of the same meets and we cover a lot of the same events. How do you feel like pre-Olympic year, you can always feel on deck there's that heightened sense of energy. And a lot of athletes talked about it's going to be really hard to reproduce that for a second year in a row. Do you think, being on deck, that energy with those athletes, it's going to be a different feel from a normal pre-Olympic year?
Well, Coleman, you're in the wrong sport if the energy is not going to reproduce. Come on, man, it's the Olympics, and I don't care when it's going to be. You're going to reproduce that. There's just no doubt in my mind as we get closer and closer. Now, it may take some time to come out of this hole, but if hopefully, knocking on wood, if we do come out of this and the fall gets back to normal training, believe me, they're going to start to be able to refocus. And you're right. I think some of the I can call them kids because they're still kids to me, but those swimmers that are in their mid to upper 30s are going to have a tougher time. Ryan Lochte. I mean, it's going to be tougher, but it's Ryan Lochte. The guy's won 12 Olympic medals for a reason, so I wouldn't bet against him. But it's going to be a little tougher because those younger guys like a Carson Foster are definitely going to be just getting faster. But I think a Luca Orlando is going to be much better off next summer. Reagan Smith, I mean, she as good as she is, another year for her, she's going to be even more dangerous potentially. So I think the very best swimmers will rise to the top. They always do. I got asked this question the other day. I was with Mike Tirico, and he asked me, well, what's going to happen with Katie, Simone? And they're going to be Katie and Simone. 1 year is not going to make a difference with them. It really isn't. I think the very best that we're going to be the very best this summer are going to be the very best next summer, except you're going to have names that are going to inch up and shove a few of those others out, potentially. Who knows?
But also, we're not in a situation of a 1982 Rowdy Gaines where these athletes have to keep supporting themselves.
Right.
That's why they're able to have these prolonged careers, and that's why a year might not make that difference. That's right.
You're exactly right, Coleman. I mean, they do have a ways to be able to, continue swimming. And be able to support themselves. The ISL has helped that tremendously with a lot of athletes. I think USA Swimming obviously is stepping up to the plate by helping these athletes and helping our club system, which is really critical to the future of the sport. So thankfully, we have the right people in place. We've got the superstars. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that the last 20 years of swimming has been the golden era of swimming. I mean, we have the greatest swimmer in history swimming those 20 years. We have the greatest female swimmer in history. Like I said, names like Lochte and Missy and Simone, and it really is. I've been very fortunate to call those races over the last 20, 25 years.
I'm going to bring it back to reality. There's some discussion about
next summer
not happening, and I want to know your thoughts on that.
I have no idea, buddy. I really don't. I mean, I can't imagine it. It would go back to the denial phase. I can't imagine that. But I have no idea. I will say that this is just me. I haven't spoken to anybody. I don't know this to be factual, but I'm assuming that if next summer doesn't happen, and then they would go ahead and cancel the Olympics. I can't imagine Tokyo being able to afford economically to be able to hang on another year. I mean, it's already costing them billions of dollars to be able to do it in 2021. And they'll put on the greatest show on earth in 2021. But another year to ask that amazing city and amazing people to do it again would be really hard.
From an economic standpoint, I can't. In the worst case scenario is I would see it.
Right.
Worst case scenario is they compete, no fans. But we don't want to put that out in the universe. Look, we got about 4 more minutes. We're winding down here, and I wanted to get into a little bit of just. I wanted to get into some rowdy minutia, the good stuff, the details. In 1986, my first international trip was the Goodwill Games, and I took back to the Moscow pool, the 1980 Olympic pool, first time you stepped on deck there. And I love that experience because you were traveling with us. You were so intimate with the team, and you were fresh off of becoming Rowdy Gaines that everyone knows and loves. But the one thing I remember about that moment, where you really started your broadcast career, was that you didn't have a suit. I guess they lost your luggage, and you wore John Naber's suit. It looked like you were doing the telecast in your daddy's suit. Can you explain that a little bit?
Gosh, I do remember that. I can't believe you remember that. I did. I had to borrow John's suit, and John's like 6'5". I'm 6'1", and he's giant. So yeah, you're right. I looked like I was in a clown suit or something. It was funny. I had forgotten about that. Yeah, my first major international competition as far as broadcasting goes, and I'm in my dad's suit for sure.
You are in your dad's suit. But the one thing that the big takeaway from that moment and in the years after that was something I think that you do up to this day, which is that you sat us down and you told me, you called me, I was Melvin back then. You're like, Melvin, probably going to do well. You're probably going to go to the Olympics. Good chance of winning a gold medal. Just so you know, you're not a star. You're an ambassador. 50% of what you do is going to be charity. And you're always going to have a family. And if you understand that, you'll always be happy and have a career. And that proved to be the most prophetic advice that I've ever gotten in the sport. Is that something you share with elites now?
I do, Mel. And again, I don't want to get too sappy, but it's true, man. I love the sport. Like I said, I didn't start until I was 17, and I was at that point in my life, I wasn't a bad kid, but I was definitely, I had the potential to go down a pretty bad path, and so it literally saved my life. And throughout this last 40, 45 years, it's been like a family to me. USA Swimming, and let me put it this way. I remember all the relationships I built, my friendships, a lot more than I remember times. You know what I mean? I couldn't tell you the times I went in high school, not exactly anyway, but I can tell you every detail of those friends I made in high school and college that are still my friends today. And so to me, that means a lot more than the blue ribbons and gold medals and best times.
All right, buddy. Well, I really appreciate you being with us, and I would be remiss if I didn't say everybody knows you as the NBC voice of swimming, but you've been an ambassador for the USA Swimming Foundation, and really your legacy has been raising untold sums of money for free or reduced cost lessons, and that's how you're probably going to remember in the next decades to come. But thank you so much, and thank you, Coleman, for letting me take over the SwimSwam podcast for Gold Medal Minute.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. Thank you, Coleman. Thanks, Mel. Love you, buddy.